Back. Yeah. Can we start, sir?
Madam President is joining or?
No, she said that she'll join, but she didn't want us to wait. Actually,
All right.
they
We
said
can.
that she'll join.
Now the time is 4. I think we can start.
Yeah, we can start. Yeah. Good evening to all. On behalf of Andhra Chamber of Commerce, I welcome the President of the Chamber, Dr. V.L. Indira Dutt, and I also welcome the Chairman Skill Development, Chairman MSME and ICT Subcommittee of the Chamber, Mr. M.K. Anand. I welcome Dr. Raja Amarnath, the resource person of the day, and I also welcome all the participants who have joined or taken time off to join the program today. The webinar is very interesting because the topic that Mr. Anand has chosen is business beyond COVID-19 and vaccination, a fact check. It's a great interesting topic because last 1 year we have been hearing a lot about COVID, and we have started in fact the webinar also in last April, I remember. And we have been hearing about the talk of the world in fact is the about COVID. And last 2 months or 3 months since January we have been hearing about vaccination. So people are real and under utter confusion as to how to go about, whether to go about with the taking of the vaccination. And there are so many people who say that even after the first vaccination people get corona. So such sort of things are going on one side, and business people are at a loss to understand how to go about, whether they thought that they are going to recoup after the COVID sometime in January or February, but now again due to the surge in cases people are really confused. So this program would be an apt program at the apt timing, I would say. That I thank Mr. M.K. Anand for suggesting such a valuable topic for this. And this is the program that many of the people are looking for it. So I would like to welcome Mr. Raja Amarnath for today's program. To give a brief profile about Dr. Raja Amarnath. Dr. Raja Amarnath is trained in critical care in India and abroad, has got a clear understanding of international ICU protocols, which are strictly followed in ICUs abroad, and the limitations of such ICU care in the rural areas and suburbs of our country. He is committed to bridge this gap and offer the ICU services of international standards to the common man. So that goes, it says about all about the speaker. So the speaker is a doctor in Apollo Hospital, and apart from that, he is an entrepreneur himself. So I think we have chosen a very apt person to talk about today's topic. So, Mr. Anand, do you want to say anything before Mr. Dr. Raja starts, or he can start?
I think we can start, and let me first have a warm welcome to our president who has joined this session, so which is a great opportunity for all of us, for all the members. Welcome, Madam President, and yeah, and I request Dr. Raja to kindly take over because that's the important session for all of us.
Yeah.
Over to Dr. Raja.
Can I share the screen, sir? Do I have rights to share the screen?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, at another time, another session, COVID topic. For me, this is, for you probably you are hearing it after a year, but for us it is almost every week. So nowadays, even the pharma industry, doctor fraternity, students, everybody wants to know only about COVID. So is my screen visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can I proceed?
Yeah, please.
Please.
So, as Mr. Anand has requested me, this time I have come out with certain facts and what are the misbeliefs, and then I would like to throw some facts. I would be going through facts means always it is only data. So I will be going through many data points as well as statistics, which will actually give you a complete understanding of what is happening. So as on today, I've just taken it from there is one world website for COVID statistics. We all follow those statistics very diligently. As on today, this is the current status of COVID. So far in the world, approximately 13 I'm correct, 13.5 crores people have been affected with the COVID. And yesterday, there were 23,000 new cases detected. And then, just a minute. Okay. There have been approximately 29 lakh deaths from COVID. And yesterday, across the world, 800 people died of COVID. In India, in the recent, the last 1 week, approximately 2,000 cases have been identified. So if you come to the India, in our country so far, as you see, 12 million, 12.8, approximately 13 million cases have been diagnosed so far, and there have been 166,000 deaths. That means approximately 1 lakh. I'm sorry. It comes to approximately 166,000 K means 1,000 deaths. In Tamil Nadu, we have seen approximately 12,000 deaths. So this is the current stat in India and across the world. Why this is important is because we will now see the exact question that we are looking at. Whatever has happened in the past. So the total numbers may not actually, give us complete picture, but the trends give us complete picture. If you see, last year, exactly in the month of March or April, we started actually detecting the cases. And as you see here, by around August or so, we touched a peak, and then slowly there has been a decline in the number of cases that are being diagnosed on versus time, daily or weekly. But if you see again in this month, the statistics show until March. So currently, the number of cases that are being diagnosed, the statistics, they show that the trend is in rise. That is why the first question of yours, are we dealing with the second surge or second wave of COVID infection in our country? The answer is yes. So the cases are in rise, and we are dealing with the second surge of COVID. Now, why did it come? So I would like to go through some scientific data so that you get a clear-cut understanding. Normally, the coronavirus looks like this. Okay, it contains RNA inside, but there is something called as mutation. All of us know what is mutation. So a change in the structure of the genetic structure of any living organism. In this virus, there are mutations happening. So new strains are coming out. And these are the new strains actually, which are the main reason for new wave of infections that are happening in the humanity right now. Now, why do they occur? There may be many reasons. So far, some of the common reasons for the microorganisms to get the mutations are like ultraviolet rays or X-rays or gamma rays, things like that, wherein there is a small change in the basic RNA structure inside the virus, through which most of the virus gets changed. So if you see the original SARS virus on the left side, so because of the mutation, the virus changes its capsule or the outer, the layer of the virus, virion changes. So that is what makes it into a, entirely a new organism. So even though we have had infection with one strain of virus and we have had antibodies to that, but this time it's a new virus for the body's immunity, so to say. So far, people have identified three strains, major strains. The the mutation was detected in the month of September last year. That is what we call it as UK strain, United Kingdom. In the month of end of last year, it was detected, and the second one was detected again almost in December, towards the end of last year, which was called South African strain. And the third one, again, it was detected, almost towards the end of last year, but in the Jan of this year, this was named as Brazil strain. So the major mutations occurred, and then majority of the viruses, they were identified in those countries. That is why they were named after those countries. But in fact, scientific language, the names will be different. So because we can't remember this, VOC 202012/01, it is difficult to, for us to remember. So let us stick to UK strain, South African strain, and Brazil strain. So where did they go? Okay, they were discovered in those countries, but where and all they had spread. If you see, the first one is a UK strain, which was again detected last October or so. It has almost spread to many countries, including some parts of India. Whereas the South African strain appears to be to have bypassed India. So not many cases in India are from this strain. Similarly, the Brazil strain also was only, mostly it was restricted to most of the European, American, or African countries rather than Asian countries. So this is where it has spread, these strains. Now, what are we dealing with, in the COVID virus or the COVID-19 virus? When we talk about vaccine, what are we dealing with? So for us to understand the types of vaccine, we need to understand a little bit of microbiology. There are 3-4 methods through which people, create, the scientists, they create vaccines. Number one is called live attenuated vaccine. Means you don't kill the virus, but you deactivate it to such an extent that it cannot create or develop into a clear-cut serious infection in the host. Host means, as of now, we are concerned, it is human beings. For example, it is the tuberculosis vaccine, BCG vaccine that that all of us would have put in our childhood, is an example of such live attenuated vaccines. That is the reason these vaccines always they give rise to a slight infection. That is why whenever you put BCG vaccine, there will be fever for 3-4 days, and the hand, that area lifelong, that the reaction to that BCG vaccine on the skin will be there for lifelong for many people. The second thing is viral vector vaccine. The viral vector vaccine means a part of COVID virus is taken, but it is put in another virus and then the vaccine is made. The third one is subunit approach. You only take the part of virus and then you give it as a vaccine. And there is another method called genetic approach, where you actually take the nucleic acid inside the nucleus of the cell. So as I said before, the non-replicating viral vector, which means you take the vaccine and put you take the part of virus and then put that part of virus into another virus and then make it into a vaccine, is called, I told you just now, is called a viral vector vaccine. Our Covishield Indian vaccine, by our Serum Institute, is an example of this. Also, Russian vaccine Sputnik is made by that. It's called a viral vector vaccine. If you see here, it is adenovirus. Adenovirus is a type of virus which causes common cold. In common cold and some of the infections, in childhood infections especially, is caused by these viruses. So you actually take this virus, but put COVID-related particle into that and then give vaccine. That is why many times when we take Covishield vaccine, one day or so people develop a sort of, virus infection-like symptoms. Okay. A directly inactivated virus, COVID virus given as vaccine is Covaxin. Many people are currently after this vaccine because they have read some article on this vaccine. So this is that Covaxin, where you are giving directly the inactivated coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus. The other one is Novavax, which is a protein subunit. A part of COVID virus is directly given. That is the third type of vaccine. Okay. What will happen when you give a vaccine? So, okay, in whatever the way you give, once you give vaccine, it goes, and then the vaccine content is presented to the body's immunity. Body, see, as you know, we have immunity in our body. So the immune cells which are there to actually capture the virus and kill it, which are responsible for that, they first capture this virus particle or the virus, whatever is given in the vaccine, and then slowly they generate. They are now able to kill that or deactivate that, but through that response, they develop the immunity. So that immunity ultimately forms the antibodies. So that tomorrow, if there is a entry of the new virus, you already have, it is like military is already generated. You are prepared for the war now. So there is a first line defense mechanism available. So whoever comes, it will be immediately deactivated or inactivated. That is how the vaccine starts working. As we said before, a non-replicating viral vector, suppose you give that vaccine, into adenovirus, as I told you, it is the same methodology. It is presented to the host cells of the body, and then an immune response is created, and that is how it works. So what are the side effects? We all know that there can be a transient fever, fatigue, myalgia means body pains, and then headache, chills, of course, and whole body pains or joint pains, maybe for 24 hours to 48 hours time. Many people confuse it for infection because the vaccine never causes infection. So how do you differentiate? If it is because of the, so sorry, 1 minute. If it is because of the infection, you see cough where you don't see cough with vaccine. You might experience shortness of breath with infection, which is not there with vaccine, definitely. Sore throat cannot happen with vaccine. Similarly, high grade fevers and a change in the smell and taste. These are the characteristic features of COVID infection, whereas vaccine does not cause all those features. So what are the differences between probably this would be the biggest question by the audience, whoever is attending right now. Now, what is the difference between the vaccines and what vaccine should I take? So Covaxin and Covishield. So Covishield is developed by Serum Institute of India. And as I said before, it is non-replicating viral vector. And it is said to be having an efficiency of 70%. And whereas the Covaxin is developed by, you can see that ICMR and Bharat Biotech. Also, there are some the pharmaceutical companies into the picture. I don't want to, because being a public talk, we can't entertain the trade names or the business related things here. The methodology or the usage is the same. There are 2 doses need to be taken. Of course, we don't need to know about how they store it and all. No. I'll take you through certain studies based on which today, nowadays, people are all talking, and many doctors or healthcare professionals are giving their messages or talks. Usually, any healthcare professional or a doctor, always they talk based on the research studies, what have been published in the recent past. This study, which got published, late in the 2020 October, okay, it said this: the adverse reactivity as the target vaccine population, what they say is that a successful COVID-19 vaccine will require a cautious validation of efficacy, and adverse reactivity as the target vaccine population include high-risk individuals over the age of 60, particularly those with chronic comorbid conditions, and frontline healthcare workers, and those involved in essential industries. And then that is the time they said that various platforms for vaccine development are available, namely virus vectored vaccines, protein subunit vaccines, genetic vaccines, and monoclonal antibodies for passive immunization. What they are saying is the COVID-19 pandemic, which probably is the most devastating one in the last 100 years after Spanish flu. So it mandates that there is a definite requirement of speedy evaluation of the patients, and then a definite need for vaccine is what was thought, late in last year. Last year itself, people thought that, vaccine is definitely required. So second myth, if people are still thinking that maybe I don't require vaccine, or if I take vaccine, do I get infection? Or if I take vaccine, is there a possibility that it's only a placebo effect and I may not get a real benefit? Kindly put it aside, because uh, every single time people have been talking, saying that we need to prevent COVID infection or the COVID pandemic from capturing this world. Vaccine is very, very important, and everybody has to take vaccine. Now, the next point here. You may see here that in I think in January of this year, the study got published. It said that clinical trials results, the results of the clinical trials, they showed that the investigational vaccine known as, don't worry about this name, the vaccine which was tested during the initial days of investigation, it said that it was effective by almost 94% in preventing symptomatic COVID-19 infection. So which means vaccine definitely prevents symptomatic infection of COVID. Okay, next. This study, which was published in in February 2021, it looked at it's a randomized trial. Randomized trial means you take two population of people. One population will get vaccine, one population will not get vaccine, and then you check what is the difference. Now, they found out that definitely when you give vaccine, at 2 intervals, when you give, there is a robust immune response that is seen in the healthy adults. Similarly, this is very important. The immunogenicity is generally similar in younger people as well as older people. So it means that even in elderly people, the efficacy of vaccine is really good. And third thing, safety profile. By giving vaccine, the safety profile is acceptable, which means there are no serious side effects seen with the vaccines. Then again, we are just going back a couple of months back into one trial, which looked at the vaccine again, where look at the data. 30,000 volunteers were tested, 30,000 people, which is really a very good number to find out the efficacy of anything. So 30,000 people were tested for this vaccine. And what they did, you see here, two groups. 15,000 people received vaccine and 15,000 people were placebo. So they did not take vaccine. Conclusion, it showed that there has been 94% efficacy of the vaccine in preventing COVID-19 illness in those who received vaccine. Then again, in the same month, another trial looked at around 43,000 people. Again, this is again randomization. In our clinical language, normally a randomized trial is something which we consider to be the topmost trial, one of the topmost trials, because there is something called as observational trial, where you give something and then you wait for them to see whether they develop it or not. But there is still a possibility that even if you had not given, the result would be the same. That is why people randomize. They take two groups of people. One group you give the treatment, one group you don't give the treatment. And the treatment given group should show the benefit, and the group that did not receive the treatment should not show that benefit. Only then you actually consider that this particular thing is efficacious. Again, you see here, you have taken two groups. 21,000 people are placebo. Again, 21,000 people are under the trial. I mean, they are called control group, and one is control group, one is interventional group. Now, in this also, again, approximately 95% protection against COVID has been given to people, the persons 16 years of age or older. So, and if you look at the safety for 2 months of follow-up, it was okay. So that is the evidence based on which everybody talks right now. I have directly taken the studies for you people too, because as Anand sir was kept on saying that these people are all entrepreneurs. So I thought data would entice them. So that is why I've clearly come up with the straightforward data. Now again, should we give vaccine to pregnant ladies, pregnant women? I mean, many people ask this question. Again, the answer to that is this: approximately 130 reproductive age, ladies and women have been identified, out of which 84 were pregnant women 34 were lactating, which means the delivery is over already, and then they are actually breastfeeding women, and 16 are non-pregnant women. So they found out that the results were equivalent in pregnant and lactating compared to non-pregnant women. So it means that pregnancy has nothing to do with the taking vaccine. They may be considered as the same like non-pregnant females, and vaccine may be given to them based on the same criteria. Okay, these are the until now about the facts about the vaccine. So if you want me to summarize, vaccine is definitely efficacious versus not taking vaccine. Vaccines are safe, and there are, of course, a few transient side effects or the complications of the vaccine which are expected from any vaccine. Okay, and they are safe, and they definitely prevent a serious COVID-19 infection. Now, coming back, why people are getting infection even though they take vaccine? One reason is that, as I told before, vaccine, the moment you take injection, you don't get the immunity built in days time. It takes weeks actually. That is the reason why we need to give second vaccine. So first vaccine, there may be some immunity, and then second vaccine, again, the immunity gets boosted up. Only then you can say that they got the immunity. So people who develop COVID infection after the first shot of vaccine or early period of second shot of vaccine, it means that their immunity did not develop yet. That does not circumvent the beneficial effects of vaccine. Next, this is a very simple. Again, I am giving these details for you to bust one of the myths that we think, common public think. Many people say that India, it is a safe country. We are safe because our temperatures are high. Correct. But if you look at the study, one study looked at what is the temperature that is required to kill the SARS virus. If you see here that the SARS virus can be disabled by heating, and then the time and the temperature has been given here. More than 45 minutes is required at a temperature of 329 Kelvin. For your understanding, I've given the comparisons. 0 Kelvin is equal to minus 273 degrees Celsius, and 329 Kelvin is equal to 55 degrees Celsius, and 373 is equal to 99 degrees Celsius, which means if you keep 45 minutes at 55 degrees Celsius only, it will get deactivated. And we are not talking about chemical deactivation. We are talking about only temperature related deactivation. What is the inference from this? Okay, if you are dealing with clothes or uniforms or any other items that can be boiled, and you want to reuse them in your organization, how to sterilize it cost effectively? One of the method is this. If you don't want to buy too many chemicals to do that, you want to heat it, you may ask how much time I should keep, what is the temperature. So as I said before, that is the temperature. You may keep it for approximately at 55 degrees Celsius for let us say 1 hour, or 100 degrees Celsius. It is nothing but a boiling water temperature, which means if you boil clothes, whatever the clothes, uniforms that are used in the working place, and you think that it is COVID infected place, and you want to get rid of the virus, you boil it for 10 minutes. Here they have given 5 minutes. Okay, let us say 10 minutes you boil it and take it out and use it. It is said that yes, it can definitely sterilize the virus, so deactivates the virus. So it's just I wanted to give this data to you people, so that if anybody having any organization or a company where you are dealing with such things, it is useful for you. But the other point I wanted to emphasize is that you must understand that our outside temperature, our environmental temperature is not 55 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Celsius. We hardly touch 38, 39 degrees Celsius. But there were no studies to say, you may see here, you may ask a question, okay, 45 minutes at 55 degrees Celsius. What if I keep for one day, 24 hours at only 35 degrees Celsius. Will that be effective? There is no study yet to say whether, at our outside temperature, whether it works or not. We don't know. So being a medical professional, being a science, background professional, we cannot comment on something where there is no data available. So this is the current evidence. If you want to say that the virus will get sterilized completely, will be deactivated, means that is the temperature and that is the time currently available. Okay. This is the latest study. Last month it got published in Lancet, and this is about new variants of our COVID viruses. It is said that what are the major things we as a population or healthcare authorities that we are supposed to do to survive, to end, you may see here, to end. What are the strategies that are actually being advocated by the best scientific agencies, healthcare authorities, to end the COVID-19 pandemic? Number one, we need to continue to suppress and try to eliminate SARS-CoV virus through rolling out vaccines. So that is one thing, because as we keep on getting, taking vaccines and the immunity is growing, slowly the virus will get suppressed. Number two, improve surveillance. How do you know what is going on? Whatever the data that we are seeing today, we got it only through surveillance. So there must be a continuous surveillance of this through PCR primer, which means you need to detect it. You need to have more of laboratory studies, more of diagnostic facilities to identify what type of virus, what type of mutants that we are dealing with. Then to create a central repository of samples of sera, which means from the patients who are getting recovered, we need to keep the viruses or the sera with antibodies and the virions for us to do further research, so that you can get, every time there is a problem, you can get an answer from that. And then again, please, I want you to carefully see this, produce COVID-19 vaccines reactively and adapt them to newly emerging lineages, which means that whatever the vaccines today we have to understand the reality that they are not enough. Now, I'm not saying with regard to the quantity of the vaccines, but also with regard to the quality of the vaccines. Tomorrow, if there are new strains coming up, you may have to identify and you may have to launch new vaccines also. The last point is very, very important. This is what actually gives us a real reason for us to take care of each other beyond our global country or national boundaries. We need to ensure global access of availability and affordability of COVID vaccines, and we need to ensure that no country is left over without vaccines, which is very important. You may ask a question, why should we bother about others? Why not we have this? This is what the lesson we learned last year. No, somewhere in China, one virus came, and today whole world is washing their hands and wearing masks. Why? Because we are all one community. There is no point in having, my nation is different from your nation. Suppose one country has no vaccine available. What will happen? If there is no vaccine and if there is no immunity developing in those people, new mutants will come up in that community. Once the new mutation comes, that will go to any part of the country, and from that any part of the country, tomorrow or day after tomorrow or next month, it will come to India, and the next month it can come to Tamil Nadu. So for us to be safe, we also have to ensure that world is safe. So this is a very for me, I like this statement very much, because for me it was a revelation when I read this, that you need to make sure that even the other countries should be clear about it, otherwise, because we will be at stake in future. Next, again last month, this study came in the last month, where again they looked at what should I say, mortality. What are the risks of mortality with the SARS-CoV versus vaccine? The study has been conducted. Again, 54,000 people have been, matched pairs of participants have been taken, and they have been followed up between October of 2020 until February of 2021. We have followed with variants, and what is going on, everything has been followed for almost, so to say, for 6 months. 6 months is a very big data for us because we are only dealing with something which is of 1 year old. For us, 6 months is a good data. What they are saying is this. Please note, the UK variant has got increased mortality rate, which means the previous mortality rate, the mortality rate with previous variant, the classic variant, the China variant, was 2.5 per 1,000 cases, whereas the UK variant has 4 per 1,000 cases, which means the mortality of the UK variant is high. That is the reason why we saw so many mortalities in the European countries rather than either Asian countries or the American variants, where the UK variant appears to be more lethal for human beings, which means that there is a possibility that in future years to come, new variants can emerge, and their mortality is currently not predictable. They may come with higher mortality rate, they may come with lesser mortality rate. As of now, in India, we have not detected UK strains. That is the reason why we are still comfortable. Now, what are the take-home points for the business owners and the entrepreneurs? Same story. If you ask me, whatever the government is advocating or whatever everybody is advocating, these are the only 4 options available with us right now to control the problem: vaccination, mask, and knowledge transmission and educating people on that, and then hand sanitation, regular hand sanitation, hand wash or using sanitizer, whatever it is, and definitely social distancing and cough etiquette, of course, because it is through cough and sneezing that the virus can spread to multiple people. Especially imagine you have an office and some 10-15 people are working in that room, and someone sneezes out like that, with COVID infection, the likelihood of getting the virus affecting everyone is more than normal talking. Imagine the person is wearing a mask and then he talks or sneezes, the chance likelihood is less. And if both the people are wearing the mask and the social distancing is there of 6 feet distance, the likelihood is almost negligible. So yes, reduce the use of hands or fingers is a basic thing, because that is how we touch surfaces through which the other person can get the infection. These are all basics. Go back to basics is what the answer is. If you ask the question, what should I do? Go back to basics, continue to do the same thing until we find out that for 1 year, the trend is not rising and it is actually going down, and it touches 0 for 6 months. That is when you can say that the pandemic has ended. Right now, pandemic has not ended. So thank you for your time and of course the opportunity. I hope I have covered what is required by you people. If I have not covered anything, I will be happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Dr. Raja. I think you have taken us a complete end-to-end learning curve of understanding COVID-19 and the current situation medically, as well as, you have articulated even for children to understand so well. Thank you very much. And this has been recorded, so definitely it will be available for future viewing by for the members and outsiders also. So we have now moved into, now time is 4:40, so we have another 20 minutes to go. So can we go for Q&A, Dr. Raja? Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So there are questions already been posted in the chat, but let me first start with the question from my end. Since the Chamber of Commerce or Andhra Chamber of Commerce is serving the industry members and trade bodies across 3 states, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. There are a lot of entrepreneurs would be watching. Of course, about close to 46 people here, maybe 25 to 30 of them are entrepreneurs, I'm sure. And this video will be watched in the future stage. So definitely we will be reaching out to more people. So question is on behalf of an entrepreneur. What would you suggest an entrepreneur or a business owner and the HR team, the staff welfare team of an organization, to immediately start exercising as a policy within the organization to protect themselves and outsiders?
Okay. If you can manage working from home, manage your work by asking your employees to work from home, that's the best way to do. That's number one. Number two, if you can't manage, if you have to do, in your office only, then social distancing, 6 feet distance with everybody wearing masks. And then as they enter the office, you should check for the temperature, and then clean hands. See, even in star hotels, when I go, certain things are done customarily, just for the sake of doing, they do. Temperature is okay because you have a measuring the infrared thermometer, you are doing it. But hand wash, with one drop of it, it is not actually called a hand wash. There is a technique available. You need to educate your people to do a proper, thorough hand wash so that they don't carry any germs on their hands. Number one. Number two, as I said, during working hours, wearing mask. Even see it sometimes annoys us to see people. They wear mask. They come. My my patients do that. They wear mask all the way during the travel in the car, in the hospital, at the reception. They come inside the room. They sit just 1 or 2 feet away from me because I need to examine the patient. No, and then they remove the mask to talk. So it really annoys people. Just when you actually go near to a person, you remove the mask to talk. So that is when people have to wear the mask. So such things, I think it's all about educating people again and again on such simple things. We should be very happy that nature, even though it has given us the infection, you see the preventive strategies are so simple. It's about distancing, mask, hand wash. That's it, no?
Thank you.
But it should be properly adhered to. Vaccine, I would recommend everybody. See, naturally, everybody should get vaccine. But there are restrictions in place because you can't give to everybody right now. So we have no other option but to follow the protocols given by the government.
Very nice. Which means typically the HR or the staff welfare team has to have a clear-cut policy to be documented as part of their SOP, as they call.
Correct.
So this is one info. And thanks to Mr. Muhammad Ali, while the presentation is on, so many questions he has asked. Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Ali. I'll take one of your questions, Mr. Muhammad Ali, which you just posted. He was mentioning that, sir, mask wearing breathless problem occurs. Please suggest how long we have to wear mask. It's an airborne disease, something like that he asked. So
it is correct. Wearing mask, and if you walk wearing the mask, everyone feels breathless because they naturally, compared to sitting, when you walk and then when you either you climb stairs or run, your intake and out, releasing of air is more. We call it ventilation. If normally while sitting, a comfortable human being breathes in each time, let us assume 500 ml inside and leaves 500 ml outside, taking that 20 times. Okay, that is equal to 10 liters approximately. I'm just giving a random example. The same person, when he is walking, he may do it 30 times, the breathing. When he is running, he may do it even more, which means he needs more air to come in and go out. Whereas when you put the mask on, it prevents, no. So that is why people feel breathless. It has nothing to do with the disease or something wrong with the body. It's a physiological phenomenon. But what happens is, if you remove the mask, you have the possibility that you can get the infection. So the via media approach would be like this. If you know that there is no one around and you are jogging or walking, you may remove the mask. But definitely, if there are people around, you have to wear the mask. That is the only way that you can logically you can think of.
Thank you. There is a sub question associated with the mask story. Like what is the duration of the mask? Suppose if I buy, let us say, a normal mask available and then even 95 mask. So how long should we use this mask before we replace it to the new one?
See, for non-medical people, which means if you are not working in a hospital or you are not seeing patients, okay, you don't need to use N95 mask. First point. Okay. Number two, the disposable mask versus cloth mask, the efficacy is the same. So, if you are thinking of using disposable mask, it's not cost effective for organizations. I'm talking in terms of organizations. You can as well provide them cloth masks and reuse them. Probably, see, for example, you know what, even in many of the uh, big organizations like AIMS, you know, they have given a policy for their doctors. They would give 5 masks, okay? And then you use one mask today, you keep the mask there, start using second mask, and then after 5 days, you can go back with the first mask. Because those 5 days you washed and you kept the mask like that. So in 5 days time, it would have got completely, you know, what you call deactivated. If there are any viruses, they would have died. So that there are many permutations, combinations available. If you are using cloth mask, probably I would say, let them have 3 or 4 masks at hand. So today I use a mask, go home, wash it and keep it. Tomorrow, new mask. Like that, after 4th day, you can actually reuse it. Each mask can be used even for 10 times, 10, 15 times. Cloth masks can be used for 10, 15 times. 10, 15 washes you can do. It's all about the integrity of the cloth. But otherwise, the disposable versus this efficacy is the same. If you are using a disposable mask, the definition of disposable mask, as the title says, disposable means single use. You can't use it again and again. But to be frank with you, we use it whole day. If required, maybe another day also we use it when we are sure that it is not soiled. But if you are sure that you got exposed to person with the COVID, you have to actually throw it out. Many people, what they do, supposing I wear a mask, I go and talk to a COVID infected patient, and I know that he is COVID infected. Imagine I think that I have the mask and it protected me, and then I go home and put it there and again I take it. What is the use? I am actually making myself vulnerable to this mask, which is now caught the virus. Isn't it? In hospital, what we do, once we do the work, we just throw the mask out. Because as the name says, it is disposable. I also have cloth masks at home, which I use for domestic purposes. Which means when I don't go for hospital, any other places, I use that 4 or 5 things we keep and we use it, interchangeably. That's all. That is the best way to do it nowadays. But in any case, having any mask is 100 times better than having no mask.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much. And another question is about the business world and entrepreneurial world. As an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur because you run rural ICU services pan India. Viewers, for the benefit of viewers to understand that Dr. Raja is also an entrepreneur. He runs drop-in ICU for the rural Indians. More than 10 locations he has established. So looking at from entrepreneurial perspective, as an entrepreneur, how would you look at business momentum during financial year 21-22? Because we are in the first quarter of the financial year. According to you, is it encouraging in spite of present challenges in the positive surge of the COVID cases? Not just for you, I'm talking about the global view.
Yes, sir. Sir, it depends on the type of business. No, for example, if your business is something to deal with the digital, as we are seeing, they're all booming now. So for them, they don't need to take up a beating. People like, entertainment industry, like cinema halls, movie industry, they have already taken a beating. So it depends if your business does not require people to sit at one place and work. or does not require people to come and buy from you, then you are safe. Your business also is safe. If this requires these two things, because COVID, um, I mean, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but to be reasonably, we call it rational thinking. See, you should expect for another year. Last year, we were talking about saving ourselves, whether I would be alive or not. But this year, it's not about that. I don't think we should worry about that sort of very serious problems. But it is about our survival of our probably the economic survival or lifestyle survival. That I think another year definitely we have to wait. So you may have to think of modifying your business to such an extent that you stabilize, where, as I said before, it should not involve people, either your customers or your workers, to group together and do the activity, whatever it is, because that will not be generally allowed either by government or by health authorities also. People will keep on discouraging that.
Okay. Thank you. And I also would like to ask you in association with the industries, if you look at the industries, let us say, for example, construction industry, real estate, building construction industry, or the heavy vehicles or heavy machine manufacturing industries, where a lot of workers are there, laborers are there. There are executives, educated people, the basic awareness, if it is properly done through the HR policies or through some force, people adapt to the changing policies. At the grassroots level, the workers, the laborers, they're supposed to work on the field together as a team. If you take construction industry, 3-4 people work together, like, the mason and everybody. So they cannot continuously wear mask for 8 hours, 10 hours during the hot sun. The nature of work is such that. So what kind of suggestion that you share? Because there are a lot of members who are into such industries here.
Sir, you are asking a question saying that, I'm going for a war and if I have to wear a vest, it is uncomfortable for me. See, you see, from the science point of view, as a doctor, virus does not know whether which work you are doing or whether it is difficult for you to wear it or not, isn't it? It will spread. That part we have to understand, no?
Very true.
So the only option will be distancing in that case.
The before and after, the before they come to work and after the work is over, any precautionary.
During the work also, I am saying very simple. The precautions are the same. Like, you should know their status of the infection, which means whether, see, we would come to know, nowadays antibody titers are available. You can always check antibody titers of a person. If they have positive antibody titers, which means that the person has immunity, which means that he will not get affected. So you can safely allow them to work, number one. Number two, you anyhow come to know that whether someone in his family is suffering from it, and whether this person is a active carrier or not, you will come to know. And third thing, whenever they come for work, definitely hand wash, temperature check, and then wearing the mask. And social distancing. Suppose I can't wear the mask, keep them apart. Let them work at a distance. I understand. See, suppose if they have to be physically working with mask, it is difficult. Okay, fine. Let them keep the other option. What we can do is, we suggest people is that instead of mask, you can actually wear a headgear.
Okay.
That is not a bad option, because it will allow, but it will not allow direct flow. If you make the people distant and follow the social distancing of whatever the maximum amount possible, people say 6 feet, which is in realistic terms, I don't know how far it is possible.
Correct.
You keep as maximum as possible. You can wear headgear. Where they don't have to feel breathless because mask closes. And also, cloth mask usually does not cause as much difficulty in breathing as the N95 causes.
Correct.
N95 is very tight.
Correct.
That is why N95 is recommended only when you are working with COVID patients or inside the hospitals. For public usage, you don't require that. You can use cloth masks, and then plus or minus headgear is something which you can do. But as you said, as I told you before, the question that, I feel breathless, so I don't wear mask, it's not logical. No?
Very true. And people also say that after the work is over, when you come home, you can do the steam inhaling immediately, so that you can. It takes 2 hours or 3 hours for COVID virus to get imbibed into the system. So I think that is suggested. No, every single day we are supposed to take steam.
There is no. See, when we talk in public forums normally, unless there is a data, we don't talk. But I can tell you, our home-based remedies are not bad.
Okay.
So I also suggest to all my patients, whenever they say, suddenly somebody calls saying, yesterday I happened to be with such and such person. Today I found out that person is COVID positive, tested COVID positive. What should I do?
Correct.
Which means you are now asking that I got exposed, but I don't want to develop the infection. What should I do? That is where only immunity helps, right? If you have immunity, you will not develop it. If you don't have, you will develop it. But still, I actually advise them to take steam inhalation. The same logic as you said. Steam might sometimes help to virus not to get attached to the receptors. Might, we don't know. There is no evidence to that. I also advise people to do saltwater gargling. And neti, they do it from this nostril to this nostril, that neti.
Yeah.
Also salt water nebulization. There are saline respirators available. Nebulization, because once the entire respiratory tract, that passage becomes salinated is what we call, which means it becomes salty. The microorganisms cannot survive more time in that area, in that saline things. So these are all, nobody has tested. Again, supposing there is a study where 500 people, you take 1,000 people, expose them to COVID patients, bring them back. 500 people take saline nebulization, 500 people don't take. And if you see that in these people who are taking saline nebulization, they develop less than these people, whatever the infection. Then you can say, yes, saline nebulization helps.
Okay.
Until such time, it can only be a recommendation without base. But
Correct.
there is no harm in taking it.
Very true. It also gives psychological comfort actually for a person. And we have another couple of minutes to go before we wind up. I have one question, doctor. Like you talked about the immune building mechanism, and you always advocate in your talks wherever I heard that the traditional immune builders which our ancient India has produced, and somehow we have forgotten. We moved into completely medication. You have advocacy on those areas. So would you be able to suggest the immune builder from our own homegrown, the traditional food items like proteins? Would you suggest anything to the audience for them to consume on a regular basis?
Okay. Anything that deals with micronutrients, vitamins, and antioxidants, anything which not today, for last, for the centuries, people have been saying, if you have these things rich in the body in proper proportions, always body will have enough immunity. Once upon a time, we never had vaccines. People survived. No, in fact, if you see, our humanity had fought more dangerous and serious infections 100 years ago. Once upon a time, these were the major killers: diabetes, cancer, heart attack, all those things. Where were accidents? Except wars, there were no accidents before 1950. No? So always it works. Our natural home-based remedies, especially traditional remedies, they work. Whatever they made of, our inji, the ginger, lemon juice, and home-based things. I advocate, but I don't remember the names of those things. My mother gives me these things. At home, Even now, if I say I'm a doctor, she says, keep quiet, I know what to do. And she gives me something, some concoction which I drink and then walk out. Because I also believe that traditional things help. Definitely they help. And our women at home, our mothers and sisters and our aunts, they know better than us. I don't need to tell this because as far as I'm doctor, if I talk allopathy, they keep quiet. If I move out of my zone and say anything, and they know better than us. But I am, whether it is allopathy or whatever we might have studied, modern medicine, but definitely our basic roots, they are definitely beneficial and a preventive stage, not after the problem comes. The difference, everybody misses this. See, once the disease comes now, especially when it is serious, I've seen people giving, home-based remedies for someone who is having breathing difficulty, pneumonia. That is where problems come. Preventive, definite. Curative, I don't think so. Not yet.
I understand.
So
I
they can
know.
use their own home-based remedies.
I know your mother is actually a very great proponent of ancient remedies, as she handles such products. In fact, I bought that Gari Nimba, that's Kariveppalai powder from your mom. So I tasted that. So thank you very much for that. And we have almost come to the end of the session, Doctor. And may I request participants for one question to be asked to Dr. Raja?
Actually, there is one more question, Mr. Anand, in the chat box.
Yeah.
Can we keep COVID positive and SARS patients in the same room in ICU setup?
Oh, okay.
Please repeat again. What is the difference? COVID positive and
SARS, I think it is missed.
Sorry patient.
Yes.
See, I tell you how people are moving now. These are all questions that you should also think of ideal situation versus possible situation. When we began ICU or the COVID facilities in last April in the hospitals, whole hospital was made into COVID hospital. And in surrounding 1 kilometer perimeter, people were not entering at all. One road they block, I don't want to name it. One road that goes to hospital, people blocked it because ambulance should not go through that road. They thought that it might spread. Inside hospital, they made entire hospital into COVID unit. As of now, how it is being made is one part of the hospital, maybe one floor or few rooms are made into COVID rooms. Rest is normal. In that, what happens is many people doubt this. Suppose you go with an infection and your COVID status is not known, and you cannot be put in a different place. No, you will be put in one neutral place where you have COVID this side, non-COVID on the other side. And here you have a suspicion of COVID, but your test is negative. Then you are moved to the other side, normal side. Now, logical question. Now I got exposed to COVID. People may ask. There is no solution for that, if you ask. So at a public at large, even hospitals have to survive. And they have to provide services to people, no? At all, this is a question about how you can make services available for a common level, for a public, at a public level. Actually, what we are doing, even a COVID positive patient today, I know many hospitals we follow it. Even if the patient is COVID positive, RT-PCR positive, if the time of 14 days is over, the infectivity is gone. A very revealing thing I'll tell you now, that what you detect is the PCR test of the RNA. It's a genetic material. Now, genetic material does not mean that it is alive. I just want to take you back to the movie Jurassic Park by Steven Spielberg, where after 1,000 years later, or I'm so sorry, a million years later, from one mosquito, they take one DNA and they create a dinosaur. You remember? Which means it is dead already. So that DNA, even if the patient coughs out and you get it, It cannot become, it cannot be grown in the body because it's only a dead, what do you call that, nucleic acid. So nowadays, actually, people are moving to inside hospitals. We see patients where 14 days is over. We don't worry about, going to the patient and treating because infective period is over.
Correct.
So but patient still is on ventilator actually with infection inside, but he is recovering from it. It's a damage, recovering from damage. And virus, dead particles are there because infectivity is over for the patient. So there are many things if you go deeper. If you ask me whether it is correct or not, ideal situation, yes, if the facilities are available, yes, you keep distant. But there are many places you can't provide services to people otherwise. So such places, whatever is happening is okay, acceptable.
Hope Miss Mary would have got the answer for her question. Anything else? Any other questions left?
The
Left out,
last
madam?
question that I want to ask is, but is this swab test is the only method for testing this corona, or is it not possible for us to check this through any other methods? Sir?
See, it enters through nose and it inhabits here and then goes into the lungs. So for a person who is healthy, this is the best method. People who are sick and they have pneumonia, we can even check sputum, or we also do, there is a method called how to take from lungs. There is a method, people with a ventilator and all, we do the other methods. But healthy people, this is the best method and simplest.
Okay.
There is one last question, doctor. Mr. Harish has posted. Sir, is frequent use of sanitizers harmful for health? As some part of the chemicals we may be consuming, we may be consuming while having food.
No.
See, just because you are using sanitizer, you can't have food with sanitizer. No, you should wash your hands. See, just because we can't go every time go to the sink, wash basin and wash our hands, it's better we use sanitizer every time. That does not mean that you clean with sanitizer and eat. Eating, definitely you have to wash your hands and eat.
So, as you rightly said, and during the presentation, we have to go back to the drawing room or the basics, go to the basics of first standard and remember what our first standard teacher taught us. So, thank you very much. I think we have come to the really end of the session, sir. We are overshot by 5 minutes now. So, doctor, if...
We have an e-memento, Mr. Anand, for him.
Yeah?
We have an e-memento for him. So before you conclude...
Yeah, definitely. Final update is like, doctor, like any of our members, any of our audience here who wanted to follow you, do you have any Instagram or Twitter so that we can post, we can be in touch with you? Because since you're handling COVID patients in Apollo hospitals and you own Sipaka ICUs, so would you be able to share your, if it is okay with you, would you be able to share your handles, social handles,
media.
social media?
Sure.
Would you please share now? Would you want to share now or yeah?
I'll give it to you, sir, because I don't
Okay.
have the links right now.
Can we publish it? Can we send it to the audience so that they can connect with you directly if they want?
Please.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, and over to Madam Vijayalakshmi.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Anand, and thank you, Dr. Raja. It was a real, very, very enlightening presentation and enlightening speech because, people, I think majority of the questions of the audience are answered today because we all had very, very basic questions which we are otherwise very hesitant to go and ask a doctor. And you have been very kind enough to, tell us the minute details about what is COVID and how the vaccination happens. So thank you very much for your enlightening presentation. So before we conclude, I would like to present a small e-memento on behalf of the chamber. Yeah, this is for you, Dr. Raja.
Thank you.
A small e-memento which will be sent to you by mail also.
Thank you.
So I would like to thank on behalf of the chamber, on behalf of our president and the executive committee, that thank you very much for your excellent presentation, and we definitely look forward to many such programs in the near future. Thank you, Mr. Anand, for suggesting a great topic, and I thank all the participants who are present here today for to benefit from the session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.